Ooh. So now you're tapping into my judging brain.
Yeah. I think that's the idea.
Yes.
Good. I love it.
Hello and welcome to another zany episode of Nerdy West Coast Swing, the podcast with pixels where the anchors are out of this world and the points don't matter. We're here to help train your eyes so you can learn faster and dance better. I'm Cassie Winter.
I'm Alicia Marshall. If you're wondering who are we to be analyzing and hosting these pros, Cassie and I both have extensive training in both partnered and solo dancing. She has about 22 years and I have about 24. Tonight, we have Myles Munroe joining us again, and we're very excited about that. I think we're going to start off with a few questions, but just so everyone knows, generally we do talk about things that apply to social and comp dancing. So now we're talking a little bit more focused towards comps.
Our overall topic tonight is like what makes a good first place dance competitively. After we've asked some like preliminary questions of Myles, we're going to dive into 2 videos of him. Very excited to share all of those. Our first question for you, Myles, however, for those who may not know, like what is your dance background? Give us like a crash course on your history with dancing.
Yeah, we've got some time. The gist of it is I've been dancing now 33 years. So I started dancing when I was 8 in a musical theater and jazz and ballet company, which then turned into me joining their performing arts school. So I did stage dancing from the time I was 8 until I was about 20. When I was 11, I added country western dancing into that mix, in which I have 6 UCWDC World Championships. And when I was 15, started also competing in ballroom and Latin dancing, in which I am undefeated in all of Canada. And the 2008 Canadian Closed Amateur Pre-Champ. So a lot of solo and all different backgrounds. I started teaching then when I was 16 in both country and ballroom. I'd always loved swing dancing. And then in 2000, I made the official choice of going, I'm no longer doing every other dance. I'm just focusing on West Coast Swing. I always wanted to be a part of that world, and there it was. So 2000, I started just focusing all on West Coast Swing, started going like Easter Swing was one of my first comps. And then just took that world by storm, competing with the wonderful Tessa Cunningham, now Tessa Cunningham Munroe. And we just hit off showcase and just took off from there.
That's awesome. I'm glad I didn't know all that when I first met you 13 years ago. I think I would have been shaking in my bones.
So a super kind of fun thing because of the topic today, my very first World Swing Dance Council points, my first points are first place in an invitational pro Jack and Jill.
Jeez, who'd you draw?
Marianne Nunes.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
So I had no idea that there was these point things, because in the country world, a lot of time the West Coast Swing Jack and Jills, I guess, were part of World Swing Dance Council, and I had no idea. So in country, I was a pro when I was 16, and so I was competing in pro Jack and Jills, and we were at Palm Springs, but it had a country component back then. So I didn't know, and I draw Marianne, and then years later, I go to Phoenix. The first Phoenix I went to, 4th of July, I go to sign up, and they're like, you can't dance in advanced. Like, what do you mean? They're like, you have nothing but champion and invitational points. You can't dance in advanced. I'm like, oh. But at the time, like that was you had to be invited into jam. So I actually didn't get to dance in my first ever Phoenix.
Interesting.
I had to petition down to advance.
Good times.
Yep. We kind of wanted to hear like what you look for in first place dances and kind of each of the levels.
Ooh. So now you're tapping into my judging brain.
Yeah. I think that's the idea.
Yes.
Good. I love it.
Wow.
Yeah, each level, I would definitely say I kind of have a different mindset of criteria. One of the biggest things for me is just making sure that the dance is balanced, right? Especially as we go higher in the levels. As a follower gets a lot more creative, sometimes there's opportunities where they may actually kind of run the dance, or the leader gives them the dance too much. And it looks really imbalanced. And then a lot of time in the lower levels, it's the imbalance from the other side where the leader is just complete dominating the leading and never giving the follower space. But when I can see, especially that the follower wants, she has some things to say in there and wants that space, and the leader just won't give it to them. So I really, really hold that balance pretty high. And no matter how many times you guys all hear this for the rest of your dance careers, you're going to hear in novice, what wins novice? Good, clean basics. BS. You can look at every single novice video of the last 20 years on YouTube and the last, 10 years before that on a DVD. You will never see somebody win a novice comp with clean basics. Just. Right? It is always the people that are dancing like they're in the next level. So you have to have some variety. In a novice, if you're going to be winning novice, that partnership has to have decent communication, so a balance in that. And I give them room for flub ups. I'm always accommodating for that. But I want to see that they're pushing their dancing. So they're trying variations. They're trying maybe some musical things. They're trying some partnership play, like some grooving or some back and forth call and answer type things. Not just dancing clean and prescription and sterilized, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And then in intermediate, I find intermediate, I give the most leeway when I'm judging. So even in my top 3 type idea, the people that are trying the things the most, they may not succeed. So I'll give them room for error. Maybe 60% of what they try works, 40% doesn't. I'm good with that because they're trying. They're pushing the dancing. They're not just sitting back and playing safe. And I really feel like intermediate is that place where dancers grow the most in really learning how to express themselves, both as a leader and a follower. So I want to see, again, that balanced dance, but some good grooving, some good back and forth. And in intermediate, musicality starts to come into it, not necessarily a phrasing situation, but understanding that they're dancing to that song and not just any song. So I want to see they hit the bump, bump, bomb on the trumpet horn or a clap, clap on the end of a hustle phrase change or something like that. Mm-hmm. As we move into advanced, no room for error now. I get really, really hard up on them. So what they try, they should succeed at. No room for seeing if that variation is going to work. And I expect a lot more complexity, musicality, phrasing. I expect intentional back and forths. I expect to start to see the follower creating her dance as well, or their dance, I should say, in being able to communicate that with the leader, right? So not just, I'm doing this now, you better hold on, but actually having that communication where the leader's like, yeah, okay, you want something? Cool, let's do it. And then, like, for me, all-star and champ type idea, the only difference with that is, like, to me, an all-star is a champion. They just can't recover as quickly. I feel like in champs, we just cover our beep better.
Yeah. And feel free to use whatever language you so choose on this show. Yeah. We don't. All right. So we don't have filters. We're good.
Cover our shit better. When there is an issue, when there is something that happens, connection wise, or a floor moment, or a missed opportunity, maybe it's a phrase change or something, we bounce off of that so quickly and so seamlessly, where the all-stars tend to, oh crap, I made that mistake. But the actual skill level, the actual need of back and forth, call and answer, musical phrasing, high complex patterning, great connection and communication the entire time, a lack of mistakes. It's all there. Like, all-stars have great skill in that. So I expect that in their dance, but I'll give them that little bit of freedom of, oh yeah, that was a mistake. Be it a smile on their face, be it it takes them half the next pattern to recover from the fact that the follower just bounced off the floor. Something like
sometimes
that.
Literally.
Right.
Yeah.
right? There's nobody better at that than Tatjana.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, our last episode actually was on balance, and we highlighted a video between her and
Benji.
People take such risk,
like the
and
master
2 times after
gymnastics.
she bounces off the floor, you don't even know that, you don't even remember it because she's so quick at recovering that.
Yep.
And that's that skill set that I really feel sets us apart. But that's kind of my expectation of an all-star is all the same skills, just you probably won't recover as well, and so I'll give you that.
I think that's fair. So, shall we move on to our next question?
Yeah. What are some common misconceptions that you maybe feel exist around judging and or chief judging, if there's a distinction between the two?
Well, I mean, obviously the common novice one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I don't think it's necessarily a common, as in like spoken about, but I think a lot of people believe this, that as judges, and especially as a chief judge, that we actually look at you longer than we do. I think a lot of people actually, they've probably heard some of the chief judges say it where like we might get 12, 20 seconds on you. I don't think that really registers how little time that is. So I think people are overestimating without necessarily saying it. They're overestimating how much time they actually get seen in a comp. And it is very little, especially from a chief judge. But even my regular judges, like when you have a full floor of people and you're going back and forth, it is 12 seconds is I'm going to say not gracious, is probably like the maximum. And if you can get it a second time around, you're doing well. Right? It's just pure math.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
We just don't have that kind of time to analyze a lot. So what does that mean to you? Always be putting your best foot down, right? Your best foot forward. You don't get a break of, okay, well, maybe they weren't watching me here, or, oh, I got to be on now because they're watching. You never know what small window they're watching. So you just always got to be on.
Yeah.
Right.
What would be another one? I'm
excited now.
Probably a bit of a misconception of how qualified people are to be holding those clipboards. It's just, I mean, it's the nature of our dance where you hit a level of competitive success as a dancer, and then an event hands you a clipboard.
Mm-hmm.
But they're massively different skills. The analysis of movement versus the ability to do movement is incredibly different. And I always am wanting my judging panel to at least ask questions. If they're not sure, I will push my event director to make sure that people have a little bit of analysis background. So the more they teach, the better I feel about them judging, because they're a similar skill set in that. But yeah, like we all take such trust in our top dancers that they can do everything.
Mm-hmm.
But all of our dance world is such different skills. Teaching is a different skill than dancing. Dancing is a different skill than or improv dancing is a different skill than choreography dancing.
Yep.
And chief judging is a different skill than regular judging. So we can't always just rest on all of our measurements of those clipboards as well. Using I've been making finals and now I don't make finals. It's because that judge hates me or something like that. We put a lot of weight in what those judges can do, and a lot of time they're not qualified enough for you to feel that way.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the whole training your eye thing is one of the main reasons why we do this show, because that's a distinct skill that can help you no matter what level you're at. Because if you can see the thing the teacher doesn't have time to say, that can mean the difference between a thing you're learning working and not working. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Learning to analyze yourself on video makes you a better dancer without even having to know the fixes. Right? Being able to recognize the fault and then being able to take it to your teacher or whatever is a huge benefit. And something I see a few people already on this call from our past year and a bit of training, and they will all attest that learning to analyze themselves has been massive. I'm seeing a couple thumbs up right there. In how they develop.
And it also helps you appreciate the people you look up to, like to a deeper level. You can watch the pros you want to dance like someday in your wildest dreams and be like, that anchor was the bomb, and like have those moments, which I want more people in this dance to be able to have.
And like get over all that wow factor. Actually see, oh, they just did that. It's a cool anchor, but it's really just this and this and this. It's not really as because we're overwhelmed and
Yep. Shall we move on to our first video, Alicia?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're
cool.
We're ready to do that.
So the first video of Myles we're going to watch is between Myles and Courtney Adair from Bridgetown Swing 2017. It was a Strictly, I believe, correct?
I think so.
Yeah. And you guys got second place, and I love this dance. I'm so glad I got to see it live. Link is in the chat. It should queue up about 22 seconds in, right when the dance starts. When you're done, we will get to analyzing.
Okay, mine is done.
Same. That dance just like puts the biggest stinging smile on my face.
It's a really fun dance
so much. Like I can already feel my like face muscles twitching. So before we dive into it, Myles, I just want to check what your time is. Like when do you need to be done tonight? You're good? Sure. Cool. All right. We'll try not to go till midnight. All right, so before I dive into the screen sharing portion of tonight's events, if anyone has questions while we're going, feel free to type them in the chat. I think that'll keep the chaos down, so don't unmute yourself since we've got a lot of people here, but feel free to type them in their chat as we're going. And Myles, since we're kind of, the topic is first place-ish, like what makes like the top 1-2 dances in a dance that's kind of like high level, but if there's anything like really nerdy you want us to frame through as I'm going through the dances, just let me know. I can draw on the screen. It'll be a good time. All right. Oh, I haven't done this in 3 weeks. To the screen share. Yes. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Can you sense a very, 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 very happy Courtney?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Cool. We are good. We are go. All right. I'll let you drive the questions now because I am holding forward.
Yeah. So I think I want to start out with just kind of a general question. Just because this is a really like light, kind of funny dance. What helps you stay yourself in front of an audience? Like, is there anything in particular?
Definitely like knowing your brand, knowing what you bring to the table, like in sense of your strengths and your weaknesses. I think definitely helps. Especially like being aware of weaknesses, because you may kind of get caught up, especially when we're talking like first, second place dances, when somebody else has a killer dance. It can be really easy to get caught up in, now you have to do what they did.
Right.
So and it may be a bunch of things that made that dance wonderful that aren't in your wheelhouse. They're not in your skill set. You feel the pressure to have to do it, and probably more often than not it's going to fail. Even at our level, we can see sometimes and feel that pressure when somebody has just a killer dance, but that your partnership, either be it a Strictly or just looking down the panel, okay, if I draw any of these 3 followers, I can easily do that dance, like that level of dance. But being wrapped up into doing that dance instead of doing your own dance at that level, which is just understanding, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. and then playing off of that, right? So that's a huge one, I think, to be able to keep yourself. And then also, like, it's serious, but it's not too serious. We always have to remember, like, these are impromptu dances that we're doing. We all fell in love with this dance because of social dancing.
Yeah.
Which is just fun and easygoing. So having personality come out, having a moment of giggles between the two of you, doing something silly because it actually wording wise, or the music has a sound to it that's a little on the silly side, letting yourself do that and not being stuck in, but I'm competing, I have to be, you know, professional, I have to look a certain, no, right? Let it out. In some cases you could say, like, breaking the fourth wall too.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that people are watching our dance, but then having an engagement moment with,
Yeah.
could even be one person sitting right up front. A look down right at them can change the entire tone of not only your dance and your partner's dance, but how everyone sees it too.
Mm-hmm.
So those little things, I think, help keep you, like, be yourself and be a human, being just a dancer in the moment.
Yeah.
And not having to be a formula.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great.
I actually want to just highlight this phrase change here, because the way you highlighted the, like, rhythm section with your kind of like bell kicks, and then the way Courtney slowed it down as you released her from the hip catch, like, I just love this moment so much. And I was wondering if there's anything extra behind the scenes about it that you'd like to share, because I love it so much.
Well, one thing I love about dancing with Courtney is, and why we were so excited at the beginning, especially why she was like giddy, is because of the genre of music. Her and I both have a love of New Jack Swing hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
So New Jack Swing is that kind of era from 86 to 93, but really, really popularized in 90 to 93. Songs like all the Belle Biv DeVoe songs, Poison, things like that, New Edition or Bobby Brown, the Ghostbusters 2 theme.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
It's a very specific rhythm that New Jack Swing was, and it's got this such a great vibe to it, and we're both huge fans of it, and that's what we got. Like, we knew we were getting some old school hip hop, and it happened to be in that New Jack era. So I know that I can let her set up any type of rhythm thing, and it's going to be in my wheelhouse, or anything that I do is going to be in hers. Mm-hmm. Because we also love the dancing that came with that, right? So I'm hitting a little bit of a Bobby Brown action when I was going into that hip catch. There's that old, actually Prince's band used to do it first. Mm-hmm. This switch double leg action is straight out of most New Jack videos and dances. So I'm just hitting that because it's right there in the rhythm, and she's slowing down because where that was in the song, right?
Yeah.
Rhythmically
mm-hmm.
now we're rolling around, and I've just gone fast. So she's like, "Oh, let's hit the slow, so that we can come back into that regular kind of chill vibe of where New Jack is." Mm-hmm. And I have to be careful not to get too excited when I get that with somebody that I know can do it. Because I've drawn partners that I thought maybe had some hip hop ability, but they don't necessarily understand the rhythms of New Jack, or it's all like school hip hop.
Right.
And I'll bust into something and they're just not there. And you're like, crap. So it's just, I mean, it's a good match for us, and a good match musically for us too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's always like a testament, because like we've been doing Nerdy now for like a year and a half at this point, and there are certain spotlights that we slow-mo through where you can still hear the song in your head even though it's not playing. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those. Yeah. And it's just so awesome because sometimes even though like you logically know what song is playing in the background, it's not infectious in your head. But watching this in slow motion, it has that effect, and it's so great.
And those are like that moment I was talking about when we're talking about judging, like showing that you're dancing to that song versus any generic song. It doesn't take much. A few moments of highlighting rhythm or highlighting a vocal rhythm, and it makes it clear what song that is.
Yeah.
It's not very difficult. It's not like you have to dance the entire song and hum it out in your body.
Right.
All right, I just want to highlight, because like I am very tall, Myles. I'm much taller than you. But you are one of the most comfortable leaders I have ever followed, ever, regardless of height. And that's one of the reasons why we were so excited to have you on our shorter leader panel. But I just, Courtney's a little bit taller than you. And I know she had a grand old time. Anyways, I want more leaders to train with you specifically to learn how to lead follows who are taller than them. All right. Commercial interruption over. Onward.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. It is something I pride myself on for sure. And I will have to always give credit to Stephanie McDonald, who's now Stephanie Raval, Mario Raval's wife, being one of my first pro-am teachers, and at 6'1" in her heels, making me at 11 years old. So I was like maybe 5 foot, having to dance to her, and her not willing to compensate and not allowing herself to come down to me was probably the biggest thing in my whole dance career. I've danced with, I've had Jack and Jill's where I've danced with Patty Miller in the country scene, and she was 6'5".
Holy cow.
And I'm one of the few people that can give her a shoulder roll and not hit her in the head. I'm 5'5". So I definitely learned a lot. And I thank you, because again, I'm very proud of the fact that I can create space for tall followers and not make you feel like you have to come dance down to me. Just watching.
Cool. Like, I didn't know that about your history. That's like really cool to know.
Went into that pencil or that finger turn. I can't remember why. There's a reason for it. It wasn't a height. But I don't recommend that to most people. Don't jump into a prep. There must have been a musical reason for it. But like things like this. So we're not in the traditional position or setup for doing rock steady movement. Most of the time you would have seen it come out of a rainbow or rolled into a right side hustle check first and then set it up. But knowing Courtney, that she knows that rhythm, she knows that feeling in her body, I didn't have to set her up for it. I just, as I picked her up and connected, I took her connection up as I roll her in, as I start the rock steady, right about into the hammerlock. You'll see I guess the shoulder roll, sorry. I'm connecting down in order, as soon as she preps and steps, that I can take it up, knowing that she's going to feel that. But I can trust at like a 98% level that she knows what I'm meaning by that. Because I'm just lowering and elevating. It could be a lot of things. But based on rhythm, based on position, and knowing her and her dance, it's a very calculated, she's going to get this, because I haven't done the traditional setup. And as you see, it works out. And there she made the change, right? She wasn't even on the right foot, so that was my bad. But I love a dance like this where we can back and forth off of each other's rhythms, and her movement inspires my movement, and my movement inspires her movement. I really, I love dances like that. Instead of necessarily like, here's a highlight of you, here's a highlight of me.
Right.
And we can kind of like, we're in that same world.
Right.
Yeah.
And ability to be goofy.
So, this is such a great dance, but is there anything that you wish you had done differently about it?
With this particular dance, I think a little bit more of, like, I would say the 3-dimension. So I didn't really bring her or us to the audience, I don't think, early enough in the dance. I didn't involve everyone else. So we're putting on a fun show for each other and we're having a blast. But you guys are watching it, not necessarily a part of it. Right. And I think with this type of genre and the way that we groove it, it would have been easy and probably that last thing to kick us in the first place had I involved the audience in the party too. And that's just a matter of, again, breaking that fourth wall early enough. There's a time like near the end of the dance that I do, but then it's too late.
How much time are we wanting to spend on each, Cassie?
Let's get through at least the part where Courtney's like, no, we're doing the ankle to ankle. This is happening. Because that just brings me so much joy. And I think we're close to it.
I think so.
I think that's what she thought we were going to do right there. Right. So then you're talking about the kid and play.
Yeah.
So knowing that I had already like set up a moment with ankles and the song is that you can't not.
Right.
So I was clearly
I think it's right here.
My brain at that point of thinking of getting it out. I like probably thought I missed the opportunity. And she's like, no, we are doing it.
So is there anything technically like meaningfully different between this kind of hip hop from like 20s Charleston? Because like there are huge similarities to those, like forward, back, forward. I'm just wondering if there's a meaningful difference.
Actually, all the top rock, up rock of breakdancing is Charleston. It all is direct derivative. So the New Jack swing is the blend kind of where we got out of full-on breaking and like low bump and grind, dirty and funk type dancing. And so it still uses a lot of that top rock or up rock kind of stuff, which again is Charleston based. And the rhythm of New Jack, that uptick of New Jack, it's not swung in timing unless you really get into it with Teddy. Teddy R, the guy that created the sound. Technically, it is swung, but doesn't sound it. But it has the feel of swing because of that uptick and playing off the hi-hat. So it lends itself very well also to keeping the Charleston type movement. But your basic two up rocks are a Charlie rock, which is a Charleston, but then on the front you cross forward instead of kick. And then you're just typical up rock, which is a rocking forward. But and so many of the other moves like are actually still the names from like the Big Apple and from Charleston times. And that's where the kid and play came off of. But this is the kid and play part right here, is just joining ankles and stepping around. So at first I just thought we were going to do Charleston, right? I thought we were just rocking out with Charleston a couple times. we both rocked back at the same time. We're like, okay, cool. And she stuck that foot out a little bit early in timing and just held it. She didn't pulse with it. And that's where I was like, oh, that's what she wants. So she put a dead leg out there to say, hey. So we tapped it the first time, and I'm like, okay. And look at her eyes, right? She's like, are you going in? Are you gonna? And I'm like,
you get it? Then she's just like with the hand, we're doing this.
So I totally missed it. Right? I look at that body language, eyes, everything. She's telling me, and I missed it. So what'd you do? No. Disconnects. Stops the dance to nail this move. And the payoff of doing that and getting that move was still a million times higher than the fact that we stopped dancing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So totally worth it.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
Looking at all our peers in the back, and they're laughing too. And remember,
Jen's just like lost it.
Is definitely the payoff was way bigger.
Oh, so good. Oh, I love that dance so much. I'm like weeping a little. I'm just like so happy. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to share about that dance, Myles, before we share the link to the next video?
No, because I think anything that I will also come in the next one. So
okay.
Let's
cool.
toss it off.
So I'm fetching the link. This next dance is just impressive with a capital I. I think that's the descriptor I'm going to use. It's Myles and Melissa Roots from Swing Diego, first place. I think it was 2019.
The finals.
Yeah, this one. Whew. Also, one needs to have had caffeine before dancing this dance. If I'm judging the situation correctly.
A lot of energy.
A lot of energy. All right, link is in the chat. Go ahead and give it a watch, everyone. And when you're done, we'll get to analyzing. Seriously, Melissa like defies gravity with that one squat. Like she is her own trampoline. And wherever she gets her knees, I want a pair.
Quads for days.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, all right. While we're waiting for Myles to return and for my earrings to attach again, does anybody have any questions? Feel free to type them in the chat.
All right, so we're through it?
Yes, we are. And I just asked the gallery if they have any questions before we move on to the next.
So I'll start this one off with, when awards were announced, Melissa and I were absolutely stunned that we got first. We both felt it was a good dance. We had no idea that it was the dance that it actually was. We had no idea in doing it. Like, I've had dances where
Yeah.
That's literally one of the questions we had. Like, did you know?
It was.
And like, I mean, not even a thought of like, yeah, we should probably be in the top 5. Like, it was a good dance and probably wouldn't have surprised us if we were 5th, 4th, 3rd, maybe. But when they called us out for first, like, both of us were completely stunned. And I've watched that video probably 100 times. And until Robert Royston went through it with me, I still couldn't understand it. I still don't know, or at that time, I didn't know why it won.
Mm-hmm.
And for any of you guys that know, Robert Royston has done a ton of things over the years with the All-Stars at events, and a lot of it is in coaching a strategy, essentially, to be able to have probably a top placing, if not winning dance. And his formula is pretty bang on. him and Kyle Red are the two most winningest Jack and Jill dancers of all time. I'm pretty sure Robert's now just a little bit ahead on that. But they both have a formula. It's a little different from each other. Kyle probably masks his a little more. Like you don't see it.
Right.
We can all see Robert Royston hit his moments.
Oh, yeah.
You know, this is coming, you know, this is coming. And it wins. It works. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So going through that with them, I'm like, oh, it's a culmination of training with him, and then pretty much everything else I ever learned about being in champions. Some of it was in the early days. Learn to go out and not be you. When I first joined champions, they're like, look at the people that do win: Mario, Angel, and Robert, and dance as them. So it made me analyze their movement, analyze what pattern structures they do, so I could go and basically copy them, mimic them.
Right.
And then through that, learning how to be myself and my own brand. And this is a mix of those. So if it wasn't for Angel having the dance that he had right before, I wouldn't have danced the same way.
Gotcha.
Right. But that whole opening was an homage to what Angel had just done. Right. And I was like, oh, I'm going to hit. I heard that opening sound. I'm like, okay, so it's cha-cha. Perfect. I'll salsa it up just because we can. And here's some Angel coming at you. And then that set the tone for Melissa. And as we get into kind of thinking about structure and formula, a mistake that I've often made, and if you look at my track record for Jack and Jill's, I win a few, often don't place, kind of in the middle. I'm not a better's favorite, right? In the Northwest, I do a lot better. So something that I always used to do, and especially with a dancer like Melissa, or somebody that has a lot more of their own voice, is I would start the dance by letting them set the tone. And through training with Robert and watching and analyzing, I realized that doesn't work. The follower's there for a reason.
Right.
If I set the tone of the dance and then open it up, they're far happier in playing within that box than when I give it to them right off the bat. And so that's something that just by starting in that little cha-cha-esque walk and that little salsa angel moment, that was one of the first times I've ever danced with Melissa that I've started that way, where I've started by, hey, this is what we're doing. And she was like, oh. And everything in her frame, in her connection changed at that moment. And I knew, oh, yeah, this is going to be different. This is something new. And then the first phrase change and rollover, I made sure that I set that up and I set the tone. I'm like, this is the movement we're going to do. I knew she could do it. Boom. Because I also know Melissa's movement, so I can set it up for her movement versus giving it to her. Right. And that's a huge one, is if a follower at our level, if a follower feels that first phrase change or major moment in a song is not being directed by the leader, they will take over the entire rest of the dance.
Yeah.
And then I'm playing catch up the whole time. And a lot of time I can't catch up. So I made sure, after feeling that from Melissa and the whole change of how I've ever danced with her, I was like, okay, I got to make sure that I set that first. And then let her have all the other phrase changes and major moments. I opened them up for her and let her dictate them. And because I play very well off of my partner, as we talked about, like kind of with Courtney there, like I love seeing where they want to go and seamlessly matching into it. Because of my dance background, I can do so many different types of movement I find it's a lot easier for me just to react because I can't guarantee a follower can do my movement.
Right.
Right. And so then that was it. My strategy going in was the same I had always had with Melissa. Start off nice and long, give her lots of space to stretch for like delayed ones, and let her have tons of room. None of that happened. It's a tight floor, but it's a tight dance for us. And it was all, again, set up right from that initial walking sequence. And then we just, we're playing off of each other. And I heard things in her connection that I've never heard from her. The way that we communicate, again, because normally I give it to her and then she just takes over and I'm just trying to, where are you going? Where are you going? Some followers are good at always telling me where they're going. And then some, it's hit or miss. And with Melissa, I'm so listening that I can't hear it all. And in this case, we communicate incredibly well through our hands. And there's a moment where, again, I went to go into that rock steady, which is that up and down. And I didn't quite set it up just right. And she drops down, but then pops up and we finish it off. Mm-hmm. And that's one of those moments that I'm saying, like, we cover shit better.
Yeah.
So that could have been a whole, like, oh crap moment. I could have freaked out when she dropped down. I could have been like, what the hell are you doing? What's going on? And taking a moment to try and figure out how to stand her up, what to do as we're there. Mm-hmm. But in my mind, it was almost like, oh, she's just going really low into the rock steady, is what it felt like. So I made sure that as I stood up, like I overemphasized my rib cage and my sweep of my arm. I really arced it out so that she didn't have a chance to stand up on her own. She had to stand up in my path so that we could finish it through. Mm-hmm. So it should have been shit. And
worked out great.
And these are all things though that I still couldn't see without going through it with Robert and him. See this moment, this is what's happening here. To me, it was just, it looks like a good dance, but it doesn't look like any one thing that made it the dance that it was to me. Mm-hmm. And Melissa and I have talked about it a couple times since then. Like, we're very aware that it was a different dance for us. Mm-hmm. But neither of us can still really wrap our heads around like exactly why it won. Because I also feel like there were a couple other really good dances out there. Mm-hmm. But then analyzing them, you're like, oh, every play moment, they're on different pages. Every setup moment is slightly behind, or like they just missed the mark. They didn't catch that major moment of the song. Like think of everything, right? They didn't think. Everyone knows, everyone wants that. And so it's a part of, we had a dance that fit a lot of the formula and strategy incredibly well, as well as other people missing out on that. Mm-hmm. So it's not just we were spectacular. There were some other factors into it that made that win. But it's like, it's still, it's probably my favorite Jack and Jill win. Next to my very first one with Marianne Nunes. Just because at that time, like, oh my God, I did dance with Marianne Nunes. 15.
All right. That was so cool to know. Thank you for sharing all of that. That was amazing.
Yeah.
That was the big thing I wanted with that video, is just because it is so uncharacteristic, I guess, of me, but I wasn't in the moment formulating the plan. I wasn't, oh, I have to do this. Oh, I have to do this. Oh, I have to match this moment. Mm-hmm. it was a dance that just worked out. It happened, and it did all that. So it's the culmination of all of that work just happening and being automated, and that's why it's really special to me.
Yeah.
So when you are dancing those dances where you do know in the moment that it's a first place, what are the signs that let you feel that way in those instances?
Sometimes it's like audience reaction. So you probably, maybe you're one of the later draws and nobody has really wowed the crowd yet. They haven't really had any moments. So you're setting up moments, you're getting the big wows, and they're working. You're not falling out of them. You're not missing the ending of them or something. That's a pretty easy one. Pretty good way of gauging. Yeah, okay, this is probably gonna win. Something like again with Courtney, when we're just on that page where we're sharing that brain. Any dance where you are sharing the same brain with your partner is probably going to do pretty damn well. And so then again, you're looking at outside factors. How is everyone else done? Is there something you have to bring in that, like the joke moment? If you guys ever were watching a lot of All-Star and Champions, you kind of often will see a move. Somebody did a move really early on that had a big payoff, and then everyone else will try and do that same move. Not every comp has that, but when it is there, you have to try and get it in. And if you don't get it in, the audience feels kind of left out. Like everyone else hit that moment and you didn't. And so that's something else to be aware of. Even when you're having that, like, yeah, this is probably going to do really well or possibly win, you have to be aware, oh, was there a thing I have to do? And then get that all set up properly and make sure that it doesn't fail.
Right.
You have all the rest of the factors working, but if that moment exists that is needed and you miss out, it won't win.
Do the screen share.
Oh my God, I totally didn't realize that we haven't even played it yet.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Can you sense movement?
Yes.
Excellent. Onward.
My brain is in normal Melissa mode until right now. Here's where I'm like, I hear the song, Angel, and this whole little movement, this sequence, is what the whole rest of the dance is based off of. This is what changed everything. Like, I would never, just so you guys know, I would never do a Latin movement like that. that is not
Angel made me do it.
This is not one of the Canadian Close Championships. This is me 100%.
You got the questions, right, Alicia?
Yeah, I was just checking
them. I'm holding forward.
So I think like the other main question that we had about this particular dance was, is there a difference in how you're kind of projecting and performing because of the difference in the audience, because they're surrounding you?
Yeah. I think, like, you know how I said, like, it was a tight dance for us. Normally, I feel like with Melissa, I would dance long. Even though it's a short floor, I would give her as much space on that floor as possible. I would make everything wide arcing. I would make full use of the floor, long slots where she would almost be touching the audience. With this intimate setting, that also helped, where I felt like we can be intimate in our movement, so I don't have to project it so that the back wall can see. I can be intimate in my movement, and it's still gonna show, it's still gonna be received, because people are so close and intimate. As a stage dancer, I really dance off of what I feel from people, and it's weird when you're on a stage and there's 1,000 people in an audience, but they're 100 feet from you. it is a weird sensation when you can actually project feeling and energy towards each other and bounce off of each other. And it's why I love performing. So choreography type stuff has always been my strong suit because of, and here there is so much energy. I love the few stage shows I've ever danced in a theater in the round. And I'll tell a funny story about that at the end. But I love the intimacy of all of that. So this was like a great comforting sensation for me. And that way we didn't have to overperform, which also means I'm not overextending. Another kind of habit that I have, being a shorter leader, I can overextend a lot of times. And then that changes my timing, changes my balance, and changes my partner's reaction. So everything kind of led to us being able to be tight and then contained, and therefore balanced timing. Everything was just working better. And I'm not having to engage a random person. I can actually see their actual face. I can say, this movement is for you.
Yeah. And like this right here actually is a great example of all of that. You just went towards the audience, and now Melissa is.
Right. Pulled a bit of the John Lindo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This pattern always carries that. Do I live up to John Lindo?
It's the John Lindo. And you'll never do it as good as John.
Right.
Try though, you know.
I know you did excellent. Your hip rotation is quite impressive, sir.
You make it your own. It's still diva. But watch as we come around the corner here. So I've now given it back to Melissa to see where she wants to go and see what she wants to do. I'm analyzing every aspect of her movement when she starts this walk. I'm seeing, is she turning back to me? She's setting up an anchor. What's she doing? Okay, she's walking. And I'm watching, how are her hips walking? Is she doing a boogie walk? Is she doing a diva walk? So that when I strike this foot and we land, we're now in that same movement. I'm a little bit early in that, but hip-wise, energy-wise, tone-wise, height-wise. Oh,
yeah. Yep.
That same model cross. And that's something like, again, where I love reading my partner that way and trying to match them. I could have just started. I could have just walked that more dude-like, or I could have boogie walked it. But having the Lindo that everyone knows, and then directly into her being like, no, I want my moment. And us just being the same picture is also really, really strong. She has her moment. You definitely can see her, and everyone on that side gets their full share. I mean, she's like that dude in the blue there. She is locked onto him. It's just like everything in that face is, I'm going to eat you.
I just want to really highlight like how you took some time to just pay attention, like you said, because I wish more leaders understand how incredibly valuable that is, to be able to turn off your autopilot and just have a breath and pay attention to what your follow is doing, so you can be sharing the same brain. Like, I know I'm a very popular leader, but like, if you list all the patterns that I know, sure, I know a lot of patterns, but the ones I actually dance actively, it's very, very small number. And I feel like the main reason why follows of following me is because I take care of them and I pay attention. Like, those are the two things that like are so important. All right, stepping down off soapbox.
I easily could have changed weight one beat early. Like, as we change weight right here, I easily could have started walking. And probably even 8 times out of 10 or 7 times out of 10, I probably would. But because of the way that we'd already set off this dance and the fact that it's competition, I'm just giving it that extra beat of her walk to go, okay, that's what she wants. That's what she needs. Here's where she's going. Okay, let's get on it.
Yeah. And I love how this one weight transfer here, where you go back slightly onto your left foot, like you replace it underneath you, like you were ready to like counterbalance her if that was her choice. And so you're like in this ready position before you engage.
Yeah, maintaining our catch, like our overall minor attention there, just to say, I'm here if you need me, because she could have just snapped. And I a lot of time, like Melissa does a lot of drops, like she does later. So in my mind, I'm always kind of ready for that. I'm thinking here, she might just turn this around and then go to a drop, like squat down her knees. So just there, just in case. But if I start walking, right, my connection's so far ahead of hers, I would have been dictating that, but from behind her. Right. No chance for me to actually let her set that, or let her even have it. I would have just driven it and probably snapped her around the corner into an anchor. But yeah, just that extra bit of paying attention. And that, you know, that's a comfort in myself, knowing that I can catch up, knowing that I can move when I need to. You know, the agility is there. And I love that she didn't snap around right away either. We set up into double compression when she's still facing the audience. Yeah. She was like, okay, I'm ready to be done. But she just set her connection back into me without having to turn it. I was like, oh, that's so cool. Rush now. Right? We're just constantly establishing each other. Now we're coming around. Cool. Let's get back into dance. And like, we all have signatures, you know, part talking about that branding, kind of being true to yourself. We all have signature things that we need to do. So I'll of course do my one drop spin down in like a pot stir. I think the audience may or may not be bored with that, but it's something I know I can do.
I'm always here for it.
Yeah.
Another place where normally I would have just let her extend. You know, if a free spin, I would have turned around, given her a hand, and just been waiting in a counterbalance, expecting her just to go super long, maybe knee up. But everything of that dance, again, from that opening moment, was just so different in connection-wise.
It's like, I love thinking about how you need to have a baseline of connection and frame that is kind of like your home base that you always return to. So if you like move away from normal in any direction, like you return to that, and whatever your normal is really affects the overall tone of the dance and how it looks.
And also, like, on that, remembering that at any given moment, somebody that maybe you frequently dance with, they may just be on a different page that day. They may not be themselves. And so this really shows, like, highlighted it for me in making sure that I'm not throwing an expectation onto my connection.
Right.
I'm not allowing a dance to start off with a preset of it's going to always be like this because that's this person, right? Maybe they're in a super hyper mood. Maybe they had, you know, that extra glass of wine. Connection is completely different.
Yeah.
And always being aware that, yes, somebody has a way of moving, a general like brand, but being willing to, oh, this is how they want to talk today. Okay. Change that up, especially with people you dance with all the time. It's so important. Always be adjusting and adapting connection.
Yeah. So we're at 8:15.
All right. Is there anything else you want to frame through in this dance in particular, Myles, before we come back for closing questions?
There was a little shout out to Parker and the event owner. That's his whip.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Always. Yeah, it's, you know, again, I just watch this dance all day, every day. Because it almost doesn't feel like it was me. You know, everything about how I would have and normally should have danced that dance. And just being so not us as far as you know, the other time I've danced with Melissa. And just the wow factor of all the little things that went together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's obviously, you know, we could talk for days about technique of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Transfers and why knees are straight or bent and all that crap. But those aren't what win Jack and Jill's. It's
right.
Interactions of partnership. It's interactions of audience. It's
such a good dance.
Yeah.
And like one of the things that I love about it so much is that like drop of a hat connection between you two. Like you can tell that there's a cause and effect in your individual timings because of the connection. And that's one of the things that we try to help people see on this show is that, like, especially a follow, their timing, you can tell if they're following by a sight versus through the connection based on the timing of the cause and effect, what they're doing. And like you two are just like this in that dance, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah. Okay.
Notice if you really analyzed it from that standpoint, is how much compression we use in that dance.
Yeah. Yep.
A lot of things, like when we're coming together, when we're, you know, even just like off of that monkey bar right there, we're living in compression rather than living in a more neutral or always tensioned base. Not everyone is comfortable with that. Having a Latin background makes that really comfortable, but it allows for different movement, different balance points.
Absolutely.
And that's, something that Melissa and I read from each other a lot.
So, Cassie, we had like 2 questions that we didn't go over. Do we want to go over that?
Let's see. No, I think we can skip those. Let's open to everyone who's joining us. Does anybody have a pressing question for Myles? Feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself. Be brave or share it in the chat. I really need that Jeopardy music ready for when
I know. Every week I think about it. It's like, oh well. You're all joining us live, so
yeah. I'm just gonna assume everybody's jaws are on the floor.
Our assumption. Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, we got a question from Mindy. What goes into choosing a partner at the pro level for Strictly comps?
For most of us, there are certain events that you plan on because, like, the event itself has a maybe a characteristic or its own brand where you're better off dancing with certain people. But for the most part, with us, it's a matter of time. When, right? It's just we look at our calendars and go, okay, I can't at this event. You know, I've already got somebody for 8-9 months out, and then you're like, okay, well, first time we can. And it's, you know, a lot of that's just based off of the fact we like social dancing with those people. So we want to have more opportunities as well as the learning opportunity. Like when we dance in a Strictly, it's that prescribed Jack and Jill essentially, right? So it gives us another chance to be learning about that person and that dancer for when we draw them in Jack and Jill's. So sometimes we'll set up our partnerships based on, I know that this person's been traveling more, so I'm going to get them in a comp. I need to start learning what they do. Let's do a Strictly. Be it they're new to the scene or they're changing their status as far as traveling, not traveling. something like that. But for the most part, yeah, it's literally just what month can we get one in? The event itself is just, it just happens.
Do you ever have moments where you feel awkward when you're dancing with other pros?
Oh yeah. All the time. So I can think of times where it is a moment of oh shit, and can't cover it. So it's deer in the headlights, like what's going on? Some great awkward moments of first time with a pro, so you don't necessarily know how they move, but you know their general branding, and from the very first movement, it just falls apart. There's just some type of miscommunication, either in they don't trust and they're the diva in this world, so they're gonna take it, or you're just so like, what I do with you, I have to dance with, especially when I was a newer pro. I'm dancing with so and so, and you start off the dance and like from the first left side pass opening, it's already the wrong thing.
We've all been there, I think.
My most awkward, I would definitely say, was the second year of Desert City Swing. What we talked about in the shorter leader one.
Yeah.
Was awkward. Pro I never danced with decides to try and snake through my legs to start the dance, not realizing that not only am I 5'5" with a 27.25 inch inseam, I also have 27, or at the time 28-inch legs. There's just not a lot of room there.
No.
And she very quickly found out that that's a low bit. So that was pretty awkward. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh,
And on the awkward side, I wanted to talk about that theater in the round story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also kind of an awkward moment. In the pro company I was in when I was 20, there was only 3 guys. So in a concert where we're all doing our own choreography, like a showcase of us instead of our director, you guys are going to get used a lot. So I had just done a bunch of numbers back to back, and in intermission, going into intermission, was this hard jazz piece to Do Host by Rammstein.
Uh-huh.
And the way it finishes off is me doing a phrase and a half of Fuertes. So this is now 4 minutes in, and my 5th number in a row. So
That sounds exhausting.
Front, I'm upstage. Fuerte, 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 fuerte. Hit the down pose. Curtain's coming down, and I can see a 6.5 or 7 foot ring of sweat around me. But that also means that everyone sitting from my 35-degree angle forward is covered in my sweat.
I always call that line of people sitting on the floor for champs the splash zone, and now I'm like, yes.
Oh, it was brutal. And so the curtain's coming down. I'm just like, I'm sorry. Yeah, and I love it. Love it.
Amazing. That's
Great.
It's one of the features of live theater. It's not a bug. It's a feature.
Feature.
Sign up for it. I used to live in Ashland, and my mom worked at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, so I would go to the plays all the time. And there were just some actors that, like, even if you're in the nosebleeds, you can see them orating. Projectile. It would catch the light. We're like, tasty.
Be careful what seats you choose.
Yes.
I'm so glad that we're not singing and talking while we dance. I'm so glad that's not a thing.
Never be on staff for Rose City, sir.
Because you will.
I had an homage to you and Tessa in the Be Our Guest rewritten lyrics for Happiest Event on Earth that I might send it to you later. There's one particular couple of lines I'm like, this is for you too. You'll understand when you see it. Are there any other questions anybody has for Myles?
Like it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah,
this has been wonderful. We would definitely love to have you back again in the future if you're game. Yeah. Plug your stuff. When are you going to be live and in person at an event again in the future, and talk about your online teaching, coaching shenanigans for the YouTubes?
Yes. All right. So live, still kind of unsure where the world is going with that one, but we're starting to set some things in motion as they happen. People will definitely start to know. As far as our online training, we've been doing this entire pandemic long, we've been doing boot camps where we run a 3-month program, which then takes people into our exclusive Momentum membership. So I'll just kind of show you guys at swingliteracy.com.
Yes.
You can find out about our programs, and the Momentum's just an ongoing training with us after going through what we have branded as the DDP, the Dancers Development Program, which is accessible online through swingliteracy.com, or when we host one of our boot camps, it's available through that as well. So you guys can check those out. Go to swingliteracy.com or milesandtessa.com, and you'll find us.
Sweet. Is that and spelled out or an ampersand?
Yeah, Andy.
Andy. Sweet. All right. I'm always one of those nerds when I hear an and in a URL. I'm like, is it spelled out?
The sign, because it's such a big part of coding.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Mm. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Alicia and I will be back next week just by our lonesomes, discussing one of my favorite dances. Don't have a particular topic. We're just going to have fun playing through a whole video and talking about the whole thing.
Yep.
Yeah. So we will be back. This recording will be up on YouTube this Sunday at noon Pacific. youtube.com/c/nerdywcs. If you are not already subscribe. And we also have our own Patreon where we continue to do more focusing on training your eye, getting really specific about language, so that way language is no longer a barrier between you and your teachers. And we also do fun animated visualizations of music for those who don't have a music background. And if you just want to throw money at us because you like this, we've got a $5 tier for that.
Cool. Alrighty. Well,
thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Right. Awesome.
Well, good night, everyone.
Night. Well, meanwhile, story time. Because I don't think I've ever gotten to tell you this half of our All-American. Because remember when we drew each other in All-American at Swingcouver like a few years back? And there was this one point where the music dictated a trust fall. And you decided you were the one that was going to fall. And you walked away from me. And you fell backwards. And then fast forward a few hours and we're just chatting outside the ballroom. You're like, I'm so glad you knew what I was doing. What was going on in my head at the time was like, I know exactly what is happening. I don't know if I can pull it off. Because I'm like, yeah, I'm strong, but you're a small boulder. And I don't. We survived. But I've never gotten to tell you my half of that. I thought you'd enjoy that.
Nice.
That's funny.
The moment, of I know what's happening, but I don't know if I can do it.